So anytime that you're in a state of anxiety, it's a very contracted feeling, and you can literally feel like the world is closing in on you and like everything is just getting smaller and smaller. And the way that this may manifest is like a hypervigilance. And whether it be about your work scenario or a relationship, all of a sudden you're just hyper analyzing everything that the people involved in the scenario are doing. Like you might be analyzing your boss or your partner, you might be analyzing every single word, the subtext behind their words, the body language, text messages, the things that aren't said, even stalking somebody's social media profile, and it just goes on and on and on. And what is taking place is it's basically you're imagining like all of these future scenarios, and it's like you're trying to guard yourself against all of these future possibilities. But as you probably noticed, it doesn't really help you to feel any better about the situation. And usually, in a lot of cases, whenever something actually does transpire, it's usually not as bad as we thought it was going to be anyway. And even if it is, we deal with it as it comes along, right? And in a way, like if we're more relaxed going into it, we're kind of in a better state of actually addressing the situation than if we were already very like frazzled and just in this very anxious state. And which again, kind of going back to the analogy of the world closing in on you, it's literally like you can't. I feel like it's a very contracted state where it becomes very difficult to breathe. Like it's like you're not getting oxygen to your head is the best way to describe it, and it makes it very difficult to think clearly. And so obviously though, when you're in these scenarios, it can be very challenging. And so what I like to remind myself is that appearances are not what they seem. And it actually, when I was a child, like many children, like I was afraid of the dark. And I remember there was one night, there was something that was scraping against my window. And I actually thought it was a ladder. I thought it was the sound of a ladder scraping against my window, and that somebody was actually trying to climb up the ladder into my room. And as it turned out, it was just a tree branch. And even now, sometimes I'll hear something at night that will really like freak me out, and it turns out it's like just the sound of the trees or just the sound of the wind. And so it's literally like that. It's literally like turning on the lights and discovering that the monster under the bed is just a blanket. and so then even when whatever scenario that we were anticipating, like let's say it does go, like you do lose your job, or you do end up ending a relationship, or you do get a health diagnosis that was something that you had been fearing. And even in those scenarios, the thing to keep in mind is that everything is always changing. And even in all these moments, and you can think of these moments too, right, where it felt like the world was crumbling down on you, and it felt like there was no way that you were going to survive this moment, but then somehow you did. Somehow you made it to another day. And now most likely when you think back on that moment, it just seems very distant. Like it doesn't really have any impact on you at all. And you can even kind of think of ways that it actually ended up working in your favor. And like there was one person that I was very determined to be in a relationship with, and I just remember all this constant hurt and pain every time that he would reject me. And now when I look back on it, like I'm so grateful that I wasn't in a relationship with him. I think it just would have been a very, very miserable scenario all the way around for everyone involved. And yeah, and then all the job losses or the jobs that I got denied or rejected from, it always ended up turning into something better. And so that's something that you can remind yourself of. But if you just want something very simple to think about. You could just literally think about turning on the lights. And so turning on the lights, and whatever it was that was causing you so much anxiety, it turns out that it was not what it seemed. And yeah, and just remembering that everything is always changing, just like the clouds and the sky. And yeah, also just looking at the clouds and the sky, looking at the sky, looking at nature, that can also help you to get a more expansive feeling if you're feeling that contracted energy. So going out and taking a walk, dancing, which I like to do, any sort of movement can also kind of help to get you out of that anxious state. And finally, something that we actually talked about today in my group, laughter is something that can be very helpful for just getting out of that contracted energy. Because a lot of times when we're in that state, right, we're just taking ourselves and we're taking life and we're taking everything so seriously. And so laughter is another great way to break out of that state and to begin to see the light in the situation. And so I hope that I trust that this was helpful. So thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.